Hey everybody, welcome to the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. Dan Labbe, Mary Kay Cabot, Ashley Bastock with you. We are live in Las Vegas right now, still at Allegiant Stadium. You're going to hear some background noise, open press box behind us here. So they're like taking apart seats and stuff behind us. So you might hear a little bit of background noise as we go, but I don't know. What should we talk about? Did something big happen today for the Cleveland Browns? Shedeur Sanders makes his first start. 11 of 20, 209 yards, a touchdown, an interception, an 87.3 rating. Of course, he had a throw, Mary Kay, that had everyone buzzing. The throw to Isaiah Bond. Also had a big pass to Dillon Sampson. That was, not a screen pass, but a little swing pass. Dillon Sampson did most of the work on that. But the two biggest pass plays of the season for the Browns today was Shedeur Sanders starting. Kevin Stefanski, after the game, though, would not commit to Shador starting next week when the Browns return home and take on the 49ers. Of course, Dillon Gabriel still in the concussion protocol. He was back at practice on Friday. We'll get some status updates as we move through the week. But you wrote this after the game. It feels like the right thing to do here would be to continue starting Shedeur Sanders, at least give him one more week after what we saw today.
Yeah, I really do believe that you need to seize the momentum here. He brought some new energy, some new life to the offense. Again, it was against the 2-9 Raiders. We do understand that. But he was able to push the ball downfield, and I think that that was the best thing that he did. He's not afraid to take those deep shots, and they're going to need more of that as they go along. They need to stretch the defense. They need to loosen things up a little bit for Quinshon Judkins. They need to open things up for other people. And when you have the kind of elite accuracy and the uncanny touch on the ball that Shedeur has, he feels confident taking those shots. He 100% knows that he can nail a shot like that and put it right over the shoulder of Isaiah Bond in a place where only he can get it. So I think we're going to see more of those kinds of plays. That doesn't mean that he's not raw, that he's not a rookie, and that he doesn't need a ton of work, because he does. And I think as we move forward, we're going to see him face better teams, better defenses, and people are going to try to figure out what to take away from him and how to defend him. But I thought this was something to build on, and that he definitely earned another start.
Yeah, people are going to be crazy this week. Like, it's going to be insane. We're going to, whether it's on ESPN or, the First Take shows, all that stuff, the Shedeur Army on Twitter, and honestly, the other side of it too. They're going to lose their minds too, because there are legitimate arguments on both sides, right? Shedeur did some really good things today. He did some bad things today. I didn't come away today feeling like the Browns were any closer to solving their quarterback problem, but I felt like I saw one of the better. This is kind of weird because there were things like, I didn't think it was a great performance. I don't even know if I'd call it a good performance, but it was fine. And he made a couple of plays, and at least they scored 24 points. And, like I said, there's just no way to have a real conversation about Shedeur Sanders other than to say, like, look, they kept running Dillon Gabriel out there after he struggled at times. Shedeur today had a better game than a lot of Dillon Gabriel's games. To me, it just seems like it would behoove them, Ashley, to let him go through another week now. Let him see if he can build on this momentum and continue to see how this looks against different opponents.
Yeah, I think the bottom line is Shedeur has earned that second look and that chance to build. I mean, that's how I feel. And I know Mary Kay wrote it like this as well. And we were talking before we hit record. There is something to be said about watching him today and seeing like that natural feel. I think you saw it on like the 52-yard throw where he had to, kind of roll out, and there was a lot happening on that play, and he looked downfield and made it. And look, the reality is the Browns haven't had any of those plays. He made one start and now suddenly has the 3 longest offensive plays of the season. So those things to me are the positives that you can look at and say, okay, those were solid plays. Can he do it against a better defense, against better teams? Can they keep adding more to his plate? We were talking about Ethan Posick had to do the sliding of the protections today. That's normally the quarterback's responsibility. So they designed the game plan to help Shedeur Sanders out. But now it is about adding to his plate, I think.
Right. And it's about defensive coordinators understanding what he is now and kind of what he does. And obviously they had an idea, but now there's a week of film. There's a week of seeing what it looks like when he does hit Isaiah Bond deep, what it's going to look like when he does take a shot. So, I don't know. I don't feel any differently about the quarterback situation after today, but I do feel the same way I felt back in the summer, Mary Kay, and that is Shador is the guy I found the most interesting in that room. Just his ceiling, and maybe like if there was a guy that was going to surprise us, it would maybe be Shedeur Sanders, and that Isaiah Bond throw is exactly the reason why, because we were seeing throws like that all of training camp. And even I mean, I didn't mention it, but the Judy play, right? That was a really nice throw. And then Judy, too. I mean, that's a whole other discussion. His struggles continue. He gets stripped on the run after the catch and ends up being a turnover, but that certainly wasn't Shedor's fault. So, I mean, that almost cancels out, like, we talk about the Dillon Sampson run. Dillon did a lot of work on that. Well, Shedor's not getting a lot of credit for the Judy play. So those kind of cancel each other out in a way, I guess. But again, it just comes down to there are these tantalizing moments with him. And it's about, can you have those and then clean up all the other stuff? And maybe you got something here at the quarterback position. Again, I don't know if it's a long-term starter, but of all the quarterbacks we've seen this season, he's still the most intriguing to me. And today was one of the reasons why.
Right. And I thought he handled his press conference very well after the game again, when he said, a lot of people want to see me fail, and that ain't going to happen. And he admitted he's been through a lot in these last 6 months. He tumbled from the projected first round of the draft, where maybe the Browns could have possibly taken him at number 2, all the way to the 5th round of the draft. And he said, I've been passed on by everybody 5 times. And that was hard on him. That was really hard on him. But when you think about it, he has handled that very, very well. He's kept his head on straight, and he has remained positive. He never complained about being the 4th team quarterback. He never complained about not getting first team reps. He never complained about it. He gets his little shots in there, but he doesn't complain about it. You know what I mean? So I think that's good. I think he's got a great attitude. I think he's fun to talk to. He seems fun to watch. I mean, he is fun to watch so far. We really need to see him with a larger sample size against better football teams. But that's with every rookie. There is something to keep developing here, something to keep looking into, and just see what in the heck they have in Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah, and again, also, what harm is it going to do? I understand you were getting a lengthy look at Dillon Gabriel. Things changed, like the situation changed, and it's not Dillon's fault. And one of our texters replied to a text at one point today, like, you don't lose your job to injury, but that's not really how it works in the NFL. Tom Brady got his job because of injury. So now I'm not saying Shedor's going to be Tom Brady. I know that's who he thinks he can be. That would be great if he was for the Cleveland Browns. But like, if Shedeur seizes this moment, then that's what happens. That's just life. That's life in the NFL. And the counterpoint to that is, it's not like Dillon was lighting it up. I mean, the reason this is a discussion is because Dillon Gabriel and his opportunity honestly didn't take advantage of it today like Shedeur did, even though, again, the final tally, it wasn't some amazing game. But there were flashes, Ashley, and that's just something we hadn't been seeing.
Yeah, and I think the reality is this Browns offense has struggled so much for so long, really dating back to last year, that those flashes become all the more enticing because, again, you're talking about the 3 longest offensive plays today, 52, 39, 66 yards. Like, that is something to me. And again, like, is it only something because everything else has been so bad? Maybe, but hey, Dillon Gabriel didn't have those. Like, again, I think that kind of goes in the pro column for letting Shedeur keep riding this out right now, letting him get his chance to learn. And maybe it's coming sooner than people expected, but I also didn't think that Shedeur looked overwhelmed really at any point today. And again, they designed some things to make it easier on him. That's pretty standard. But the other encouraging thing to me was even that first sack he took it stepping up into the pocket. And that's not something we've seen from him. He wasn't doing his escaping out of the back of the pocket today. And again, those are incremental things that you can look at and say, that's a tangible improvement.
Yeah, I think that's the other thing, is there wasn't there wasn't a lot of negative just from the standpoint of, he had the one interception. That was a bad one. But again, we're talking about a rookie. Every rookie's going to have plays like that. But yeah, to Ashley's point, Mary Kay, it didn't look like it did against Baltimore. Now, how much of that had to do with they were playing the Raiders, I don't know. But honestly, it doesn't matter because that's who they played today. And that's who he made his first start against. And we'll get opportunities to see him against better defenses and better football teams and be in some tougher situations. But at least a lot of the stuff that we saw against Baltimore that made you sit there and think, oh man, all those bad habits, there's just no way this can work. I felt like we didn't see that much today.
Right. And when you think about it, when you look back to that Baltimore game, you have to really realize and understand that he had never taken a snap with the first team offense. He had never taken a snap from Ethan Posey. He had never thrown the ball to Cedric Tillman or Jerry Jeudy. And I find that remarkable. And I think that was wrong to approach it that way. But this was, once again, his first full week of practice with these guys. And if it's going to look like this after his first full week, then maybe it could look a little better after his second week. And that's what you hope for from a rookie is incremental progress. That's what you want, and that's what you hope for. So this is no referendum on anything at all. This is a chance to say, let's take this up to the next level and see if he passes the next test, right? He passed this test today, in part, of course, because the defense played lights out and completely shut down the Raiders offense. Once again, to the point where Chip Kelly got fired after the game. But it was, there were some things that gave people a little bit of hope here. And when you've got Myles Garrett reacting to that 52-yard pass the way that he did, this has been a very frustrating season for Myles Garrett. He's been venting. He's been slamming his helmet down and being really upset about everything. For him to have something to get excited about like that, that's good. That's what you want. You want positive energy, and Shador brought that.
Yeah, and just to kind of put it in perspective, right? So they had the 2 touchdowns in the first quarter. You look at the rest of their drives, you're looking at 1 play, the interception, 3 plays, 1 play, that was the fumble. Again, that one's not Shador's fault.
7 3 and out.
Yeah, I know. Then they had 3 plays, 1 play. That was an end of half, so we won't worry about that. That was a kneel down. 3 plays, 6 plays, 8 plays. But there were just a lot of 3 and outs. There were a lot so the offense wasn't fixed today. Again, you're going to hear a lot of stuff. You're going to hear a lot of crazy overreaction to this game. Not everything was fixed today, right? And Shedeur Sanders didn't become a franchise quarterback today, and the offense at times was still not functional today. But adding that explosive element, it's just, we saw what it does when you can have one throw that sets up a touchdown, when you can have one throw that becomes another touchdown. Who knows what would have happened on that play when Jeudy on that drive when Jeudy fumbled the ball. So just having that explosiveness that we know Shedeur Sanders can bring, that does make things a little bit easier for you. And again, it just kind of goes back to, now can you do it consistently? Now can you sustain drives? Now can he do the things he has to do on a down-to-down basis to really be able to run this offense?
Yeah, and I'm sure we're going to get to this point here shortly, but I also think that explosiveness today was so important for this defense. And you look at what they did, and it just gave them some wiggle room. And I think that was the sort of complementary football they needed. And again, the Raiders are not good. The Raiders made this Browns special teams look amazing. And we're only a few weeks removed from the special teams quite literally losing them the game against the Jets for giving up 2 return touchdowns. It looked like they solved every ill that has plagued this unit or that phase of the game for the last 3 or 4 years. So this was not a good football team, but that explosiveness, I think, really just added something to every phase, not just the offense.
Okay, I think we're going to have a lot of time to talk about Shedeur Sanders this week. I do think, and of course you guys have to go catch a red eye, so we got some limited time here. We don't want Mary Kay and Ashley to miss their flights. And we can't have another podcast where Myles Garrett has a great game and we don't talk about Myles Garrett. That happened in a post-game pod a few weeks ago because the game was just so awful. We couldn't squeeze poor Myles in. Mary Kay, he reset his own record, his own team record. He is now up to 18 sacks. We are 11 games into this thing, 22 and a half. It's not out of the question based on the last month that we could be talking about getting to 22 and a half next week against the 49ers. It's certainly realistic. It could happen in the next 2 weeks. They play the 49ers and then the Titans on December 7th. I know you've been tracking this. You've been keeping up with this. You've been saying this is going to happen. 3 more today, including a strip sack. Myles, unless something crazy happens, unless he, the only thing that's going to get in the way is Myles Garrett, right? Like he is on his way to 22 and a half sacks. I think today I figured out he's on pace for 27 sacks this season, which is crazy. What we're watching from Myles Garrett this season, I'm in awe of at this point.
It's amazing. 14 sacks in the last 4 games. It's some kind of a record. I think he broke.
I think it's the most. Was it Strahan?
Yeah. The most in a 4-game span, beating out Michael Strahan for that, which I think he had 12 and a half.
It was 12 and a half. Yeah.
Okay, got it. So yeah, that's pretty remarkable. And remember, there was a point in time where he went through a 3-game drought or a 4-game drought even without a sack. And we were starting to wonder, what's going on with Myles? Teams are knowing what to do with him. They're quick gaming him. They're double teaming him. They're chipping him. They're taking him out of the football game. And he has just gone gangbusters since that time, to the point where I don't see how you don't give him NFL Defensive Player of the Year again this year. I don't know how you don't do it. And he's going to get that sack title. It's all going to be wrapped up into one. And the Browns are going to have something really to feel good about in this lost season.
Yeah, and just so he was sick on Friday, and he was up at the podium today coughing. Kevin Stefanski in his post-game speech in the locker room mentioned that Myles was sick and that he wasn't really himself and he had a cold. He said he needs to get a cold every week now at this point. So he was kind of fighting through that a little bit today. It was interesting. I thought early in the game that I think in the first series, they actually took him out pretty early and they were only using him on third downs kind of early. But Ashley, just this, I don't know. It almost feels like guys in the Browns locker room have run out of ways to describe what Myles Garrett is doing. And I think that speaks to this as much as anything, is that this just feels normal at this point. Like we're showing up on Sunday and Myles is going to have, like, if he only has 2 sacks, it's like, what's going on? What's wrong with Myles Garrett? It's sort of reached that point.
Yeah, I was laughing at the Joel Bitonio quote after the game that we're to the point that Myles has 3 sacks and it's a down game, right? And Shelby Harris told me after the game, like, this is what you expect out of Myles. Like, he knows Myles is that good, and this is the norm, essentially. And I do think the really cool part about this is seeing how the Browns have built out that D-line. We're coming off of a week. They just extended Alex Wright, who didn't even play in this game, by the way. Their number 2 edge rusher, basically, and they still got 10 sacks and 20 quarterback hits. So that just goes to show you the production that was coming alongside Myles. 7 other guys got sacks in this game, and I do think it's really only making him better, especially Malik Collins, Mason Graham. There's so many examples where those guys just push a quarterback kind of back into the pocket, or they're scrambling to try to get away from them and run right into the arms of Myles Garrett, like the true nightmare. So I think that, to me, has also been so intriguing. It's like Myles is playing at his best, but the Browns finally, it seems, have solved these problems that, 5 years of covering this team have been watching them try to solve in some capacity.
Yeah, and we've spent so much time on that other guy, right? That bookend guy. It was Jadeveon Clowney. It was Zadarius Smith. They just locked in Alex right now at $11 million, which is kind of your second edge rusher type of money. They're kind of attacking that in like waves, though. They've got Cam Thomas. They've got Isaiah McGuire. So they're kind of running a bunch of guys there. But then we sort of sneakily saw this team begin to invest in interior linemen, right? They draft Mike Hall. They took a shot on a guy like Quentin Nelson. It didn't work. Now Malik Collins has sort of been what, Ashley, I think you've said this before, what we thought Quentin Nelson would be for this football team. I don't think it's a coincidence that they've got Malik Collins, Mason Graham, Shelby Harris. Mike Hall just got back. He he ended up getting a sack today. He had one taken away, but then he got another one. They've got kind of a wave of guys now in the middle of that line. And I don't think it's a coincidence that we're seeing that, Mary Kay. And also now Myles Garrett is having his best season. That interior pressure is just wreaking havoc and just opening up more opportunities for him.
Yeah, and in the beginning, it was so much of Malik, and the lights have really come on for Mason Graham over the past couple weeks. And now he is just cooking with gas. I mean, he is out there tearing it up. And that is really, really helping this football team. So they are dominant on the inside, and there's just nowhere for a quarterback to go. And they're getting the tackles for loss and all those kinds of things as well, doing a really great job against the run. So it's just all really working together really, really well. And if they can keep this together, if they can keep this defense together and then add in a winning quarterback, I think that they are going to be onto something for next year when they add a bunch more pieces through the draft and other ways.
And I think if nothing, and this is a whole other, this is like probably 5 podcasts, what I'm about to say, but like, I think the way this defense is played should create, not that there wasn't one, but it should really create a sense of urgency for this front office, whether that's, we're going to assume it's Andrew Berry and company, but whatever, whoever ends up calling the shots, it should create this sense of urgency because they've got something on this defense, and they do have some young guys, obviously, but like, Myles Garrett is going to be 30 in December. Denzel Ward is not, none of these guys are old, but there are a couple key guys getting older. Malik Collins isn't a young guy, obviously. There should be a sense of urgency that like you have this moment with this defense, and it's hard to keep defenses together. They get really expensive really fast. So hopefully, Ashley, whatever that looks like, whether that's being aggressive in the draft and going after a guy they believe can be their franchise quarterback, adding a veteran, whatever they do, they really need this performance by the defense, what we've seen all season long, but even today specifically, it's like, man, you better have a real sense of urgency to get this thing fixed because you have something special on one side of the ball.
Yeah, and to my earlier point, I think games like today, games like the Dolphins game, just serve as reminders for how this defense looks good in basically every game, right? They have had their mistakes. We talk about the letting Carson Wentz march down the field 80 yards or not getting the ball back at the end of the Jets game. But what I think it really shows is for how good overall this defense has been when they get to play with a lead, it takes it up a notch. So I think like the unfortunate part in watching it is not only, hey, you lost a year with this really great defense. It's that I would argue you have a really great defense that has more to give and you haven't been able to utilize it because your offense has been so bad for such a long stretch. So I do think it definitely needs to up the sense of urgency. There's been this youth movement, but again, while you have these guys on these cheap rookie contracts by comparison, I mean, look at how the D tackle market has blown up over the last 2 or 3 years. Like, that is the in vogue position, as we like to say, among the defense right now. Those guys aren't getting any cheaper. So you have to make the most of it.
Yeah. And just one more thing on that defense to your point, like because the offense, because they got the big punt return that led to a touchdown, because they got the big Bond play, it was 14 to nothing at that point, right? 14 to nothing, or was it 14? Whatever. They got a lead. And you could just sense it out there. And, we were talking defensive linemen after the game. You could just sense it. Like all of these guys were out there, like, let's go get one. Like that's what happens on a defensive line. They can smell blood in the water. Malik Collins kind of laughed today when he got asked about that. He said, well, I don't want to say that, but you know what he was thinking when he got asked about that. Like these guys can smell that blood in the water, and they start thinking, let's go out there and get some stats. And that's sure what it felt like today watching this, Mary Kay. It felt like a bunch of guys that smelled that blood in the water and said, let's go get some stats. And they haven't had an opportunity to do that much of this season.
Yeah, they were just trolling. I mean, they were just absolutely trolling the Raiders today. And Geno Smith could do nothing. Now, of course, we're talking about one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL. 2 of their guys are on injured reserve. But it was such a disaster that once again, Chip Kelly got fired after the game. So it really was, if you were a Raiders fan here, it was difficult to watch what was happening out there. But everybody had a feel-good game. on the Browns defense for sure. Myles got closer to the record, which is going to be good for all Browns fans. But I did want to bring something else up that I just wanted to touch on real quick here. And that is the fact that if you look at the rookies on this football team and how well they are playing, you've got to get excited about the Browns' future. You have to get excited about the Browns' future when you look at Mason and you look at Carson and you look at Quinshawn and Harold Fannin. How about Harold Fannin with the yak, right?
That conversion, that was unbelievable.
Yes, it was unbelievable. I mean, he breaks tackles like there's no tomorrow. I mean, he just doesn't give up on a play. And so there are so many things. Dillon Sampson, I mean, they finally were able to get him involved in the game and utilize his speed and his talents a little bit. The future looks bright for this football team. So even though they are 3-8 and probably going nowhere this season, the future definitely looks bright.
Yeah, there's some pieces, and like you were saying, even with Dillon Sampson, he's kind of been out of the plans here for the last. He had that big Cincy game, and I did the math in one of a story that's going up Monday morning, but I don't remember what it was. But he just hasn't been touching the football very much since that game. But you find that one play, Ashley, where he can turn on the Jets. I mean, we were talking about it like he had a 25-yard run, but he ended the day with 23 yards rushing. But guess what? That 25-yard run was huge. That 66-yard pass completion was huge. So he's one of those guys where if you can just find that one play, he can turn on the Jets and make something happen.
Yeah, and I do think that's important. That's good enough to utilize somebody like that you picked up on day 3 of the draft. And to your point, the 66-yard pass play, and he ended with 59 yards receiving. And I think that might just kind of be par for the course with Dillon Sampson, right? Like, you're not going to have him as your featured back. He is smaller, so if he can't use that shiftiness, there might be some negative plays. But when that shiftiness works for you and you get the explosive plays, that's why he's out there.
Okay. That'll do it for this edition of the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. Unfortunately, I ran out of time for Ashley to tell her blackjack story. So I guess we'll have to save that for another podcast. You can find us on Instagram, Orange and Brown Talk, Twitter, Orange and Brown Talk, our YouTube, Cleveland Browns on cleveland.com. And of course, get subscribed on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. For Mary Kay and Ashley, I'm Dan. Thanks for listening, everybody.